Welcome back to the TCM YouTube channel where we are continuing our 2023 county previews, and this time it is the turn of Somerset County Cricket Club, and to join me to do this is Alex Duffell, our regular TCM contributor. I mean, come on, I almost fluffed up that intro again, not on the third try, but I'm going to keep going. Alex, first, let's get your thoughts on how excited you are for the 2023 season and how much you're looking forward to seeing Somerset in action.
Yeah, really excited. Look, I think if you asked me a week and a half ago when it was snowing everywhere, I think everyone was a little bit less excited. But I mean, the prospect of cricket back is great. I think it's all very nice, waking up, watching cricket, fire on in the winter with your hot chocolate. But at the end of the day, nothing beats a bit of summer cricket, and especially county championship cricket.
Absolutely. Well, we like to start these previews by looking back on last season. So I'm sure you'll be delighted with that because Somerset got knocked out in the Vitality Blast semi-finals. They were 8th in the One Day Cup and 7th in the County Championship. There's a saying that you're the bridesmaids of county cricket, but at this point, I don't think you're getting to the wedding. How do you reflect on last season now you've had a bit of time to stew on it? And what do you think you can do better this season?
I think it was one of missed opportunity for Somerset, if we're totally honest. I think if you look particularly in the T20 side of things, I think that was a T20 side that was built to win that competition. They were, in my opinion, the best side of the tournament. Riley Russo was the best signing of the tournament, hands down.
And
And
David, I
they
beg
were
to differ.
Well, I thought you would, but they're pretty dominant throughout the group stage. You then have that absolutely demolishing of Derbyshire that took place at Taunton, and then to get to the semi-finals, to get to a place where they've been so many times before. Even you look at last 2 years ago now, where yes they had Hampshire again in the semi-finals, but found a way to overcome them. So I think there'll be a little bit of disappointment in the way that they approach that semi-final. It's a little bit cautious, I thought, from Somerset, a little bit perhaps maybe against what had got them to that stage. I think that'll be a big disappointment, but at the same time, that's the competition where they had the most success. From a Red Bull point of view, it's kind of been heading this way for a while. I think a lot of Somerset fans have been a little bit concerned over a longer period about the batting. And the lack of run scoring, which I think has been addressed, and I'm sure we'll come on to. But I think even when Somerset were doing well, runners up to Essex a couple of years back, that has always been based off of a strong bowling attack. There's never been a huge amount of runs to play with. And I think last year that really kind of came to fruition and ended up, being the main factor in what was a very disappointing Red Bull season. And for a long time looked like Somerset may be in Division 2 this year, which I think would have been slightly catastrophic, to be honest. But I think some good results end of the season. I think they found a way to become hard to beat. You have that run of draws that I think really got them out of trouble. So I think in the end they'll look back on it with, okay, yes, it wasn't a great season, but at least we're still in Division 1, and it's something to build on going forward this year. And the Royal London One Day Cup, having been to every single Taunton game last year, let's not talk about it because that was Somerset are victims of their own success in that competition. The way that tournament is now, effectively a second team tournament, Somerset lose so many players to the 100 that you had such a young side who at times actually played some really exciting cricket. Ben Green, I thought, was phenomenal throughout the tournament. The some young seamers did really well. Alfie Ogborn, Sonny Baker coming through were brilliant. The rise of James Rue was really good to see. But yeah, the results were not great. I think Somerset will just be glad that they managed to win at least one game and didn't go through the entire tournament winless.
Well, let's not dwell on that terrible season too much, and let's look at a bit of the off-season business you've been doing since September. And of course, main signings for you: Tom Kohler-Cadmore coming back from Yorkshire, Sean Dixon signing from Durham, another batsman, and then also you've signed a 19-year-old spin bowler from Berkshire, Shoaib Bashir. as well. I butchered that pronunciation, but there we go. And then overseas wise, you've got Peter Siddle coming back and also Matt Henry. Looking at those signings, who stands out for you?
I think it's been really smart business all round. I mean, Kola Cadmore, I think, is probably the standout name there for his pedigree, what he's done on the world stage across the leagues everywhere. For me, Dixon is a massive signing. I think Somerset have looked and gone, right, the Red Bull batting, top order batting in particular, has been a big problem for a number of years. Dixon's record in the last couple of years in the Championship has been outstanding. So I thought it was a real coup to get him. And I'm really happy that he'll be at Taunton next year. Henry, I think, is a very, very good signing. I'd love to see him, and mid-season county championship, all in a little bit. I think he'll be really destructive. And Peter Siddle is just what Peter Siddle does. He will be very steady. He will pick up wickets. He will contribute. And I think it's a good bit of business. But the other good signing that I think Somerset have made is the new bank coach. Shane Berger from Scotland head coach for the last 3 years. He's been brilliant up there. I think to get him in as batting and an assistant coach is a really good signing for Somerset, and hopefully he will be able to find the solutions to the batting issues that have plagued Taunton for a number of years now.
And that just shows how much research goes into me doing doing these previews. Let's turn more then to your players themselves. Obviously, you've got big names. I think it's fair to say you talked earlier that you're a victim of your own success in the One Day Cup. Lots of big England names. Tom Abel, Tom Bantam, Jack Leach, Craig Overton, etc., etc. You can go on. I wonder how you think some of those players are going to do. Tom Abel, in particular, just been into the England Lions last year, averaging 51.95 in the county championship. For him this year, do you see a very big season coming up?
Yeah, I do. I think the priority for him is getting fit. He's currently injured at the moment. Obviously, missed out in the Bangladesh tour for England, having been called up to the main squad for the first time. So I think for him is getting fit. So I wouldn't expect too much from him early season. I know Somerset are very hopeful he'll be fit for their first couple of games, but I'm not so sure. So I think he'll be eased back into the side quite gently. Um, he's always been quite a form player. He'll go through patches where he does look absolutely incredible, and then he'll go through some quite lean patches as well. But I do think it will be a big year for him. I'm sure he will have a strong year, be it T20, be it Red Bull, be it whatever. He is a very well-rounded player who really does have a strong all-round game.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes there. Another Tom who's been a topic of contention. I remember a couple of years ago during the COVID years, he was in the England side and he was a big prospect. Is Tom Banton. Now, I wonder how you're reflecting as a Somerset fan on his sort of rise and fall and peaks and troughs, and I wonder what you think he's got in store for this season.
Yeah, I think Tom's another one. He's probably had, like every cricketer does, he just had a bit of a poor year last year, but that's a poor year by his standards. He now has very high standards. He's still relatively young. He's still got a long way to go in cricket, so I don't expect kind of the end of Tom Banton after one poor year. It wouldn't surprise me if he has an exceptionally strong campaign this year. I would expect him potentially down the line to do what Will Smeed has done and sign a white ball only contract with Somerset. He hasn't done that this year. Potentially moving forward, that could happen. I think last year they tried with him in Red Bull. There were signs that it potentially could work, a bit kind of Ross Butler-esque for England when they tried him in Test matches. But I think overall, and at the end of the day, Tom Banton's strength will always be the short format. And at his very best, I still believe he can be one of the most destructive T20 batters on the planet.
Yeah, and of course that'll be great for you in the Vitality Blast. Someone else who will be good for you in the Vitality Blast, who you mentioned there as well, is Will Smeed. You mentioned he's signed a white ball only contract. I wonder for you as a Somerset fan, how does that feel? Because would you have liked him to try his hand a bit more at the Red Bull format, or are you happy to see him just thrive in the white ball game?
Would I have liked to have seen him play Red Bull? Absolutely. I think a lot of Somerset fans, the first time they'll remember the name Will Smeed was when he was about 16. I believe he scored a double hundred in a Somerset Twos game, batting alongside Marcus Trescothick. And everyone kind of went, whoa, what a prospect for our county championship side. You know, fast forward a couple of years and he to play a county championship game for Somerset, and now doesn't look like he potentially ever will. But at the same time, in the modern game, player welfare, game management is so important. For Will to take that decision where he feels that he wants to prioritise his white ball career. Personally, I'm absolutely comfortable with that. I think there is so much white ball cricket at the moment. His age, the way he wants to develop, he's trying to get into that England white ball setup. I've got no issues with him prioritising it, even if it does mean that we potentially are robbed a little bit of Will Smeed, the Red Bull player.
Yeah, of course. Again, it will be interesting to see maybe whether he comes back to Red Bull down the line, although I highly doubt it in the current climate of cricket around the world. We've talked a bit about signings and who you've brought in, but someone who you've not got this year is Merchant de Lange. Again, I'm just butchering pronunciations left, right, and centre. It's the perks of being a northerner. I wonder, he's obviously gone to Gloucestershire, which is your rivals. And I was previewing Gloucestershire earlier this afternoon, and that's a huge signing for them. How do you reflect? What hole is that going to leave in Somerset as a side, or do you think that can easily be patched over?
It does leave a hole. I think Marchant's been a strong squad player for Somerset over the past couple of years. He's had some very good games. He's had some not so good games. But I think overall Somerset fans will look quite fondly on his time. I think they'll be very pleased with his career at Somerset. But at the same time, he was used less and less last year. There is a good crop of young Somerset quicks coming through. I signed Matt Henry and Peter Siddle would have jumped ahead of him in terms of county championship as an overseas spot anyway. So I think the time was probably right for him to move on. The fact that he's moved just up the road to Bristol probably saves on him moving house, I imagine. And I'm sure he's quite happy with that. I don't think it'll bother Somerset fans too much unless he, plays us in the blast and probably takes Fifer, which will inevitably happen now I've said this. But look, I'm happy for Marchant that he gets to continue playing his trade in the county championship, and I think it's a good sign for Gloucestershire. But at the same time, I think it was the right time for Somerset to move on as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes. I'll be watching that one, and of course, no doubt, I'll be giving you shit if it goes wrong for Somerset. So let's turn to youngsters then in your side. And one man who caught my eye last year is James Rue, obviously England under 19s. I've followed his journey quite a bit actually. And I remember him because at a Southport County Championship match last season that I was at, he scored 93 off 246 and occupied that middle for an agonizingly long amount of time, which pained me greatly and probably ended up in us getting, I think we drew that game in the end. Alex, he's clearly a talent. Where do you see him going this season? Do you think it's just an upward curve?
Oh, I absolutely think it's an upward curve. To be honest, for me, he will be Somerset's number one keeper this year. Stephen Davis has had a phenomenal career. He's been brilliant for Somerset over the last number of years, but he's come into the twilight of his career. He played less and less last year, and I think he will move more into almost a mentorship type role this year at Somerset. Where he will play where needed, but will be a real key figure in the dressing room with the growth of youngsters, particularly James Rue. So I think Rue will become Somerset's number one keeper. I think he slots nicely into that middle order. And he's got big shoes to fill. Davis not there, Hildreth retired. So there are a lot of runs that were in that middle order that now aren't. So there's a big space for him to fill. Can he do it? Absolutely, 100%. As you say, he played some brilliant red ball innings where he just ground out forever. Showed maturity beyond his age. Um, and then at the other end of his game, can be a very destructive white ball batter. I've seen it both firsthand at Taunton and then on the TV when he's been playing for England Lions and England under-19s. He's an excellent sweep player. He destroys spin, quite frankly. For a youngster, I don't think I've ever seen somebody quite so comfortable shifting through the gears. So I think Somerset fans can be really excited about him this year. But at the same time, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. And I don't think there should be that pressure. People shouldn't be going, oh, he'll be, in the England setup within 2, 3 years as their test keeper. Let's just calm. I think you don't want to get into the same trap people have done with Banton, with Smead, etc. 1 or 2 innings and going, oh, he's the next greatest player ever to come out. He's the next Truscothic, whatever. Let's just temper
You're a victim
expectations
of
a
your
little
own
bit.
passionate fan base.
Yeah,
That's what you're...
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think people can be excited. People can look forward to what he'll bring to the side this year. And I do think he'll have a strong year. But at the same time, I don't want people to put too much pressure on the young lad.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely one to watch. And speaking of ones to watch, I want you to pick out for us one player who you think our viewers at home and people across all the counties should be looking out for at Somerset this year.
Well, I was going to pick Rue, but seeing as we've just spoken so strongly about him, I'll go for somebody else. I think I might go for Sonny Baker actually, who who people will have seen over the past couple of years as he first came through into the Royal London side, and then actually got picked up in the 100 back end of last season. So I don't actually know if he'll play much Royal London cricket for Somerset this year. Wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't. He is quick. He is raw pace. Young seam bowler, right arm quick. He can be very destructive at the death. I think I saw him take a 5 for or 6 for last year in one of the Royal London games. There is a little bit of question about his consistency, which I hope that has been worked on in the winter, because I do see that he could be a real talent, not only in white ball cricket, but in red ball as well. So I think it's a big year for him. And hopefully he'll get given the opportunity to showcase that talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one to watch there. Sorry, I stole your one to watch with a question before. Just quickly broadening it back out a bit. One Day Cup, obviously, you mentioned that you struggled there. I wonder what your thoughts are on how Somerset can do better in that competition this year. Granted, they're going to lose players to the 100, but you and I both know that's not going to change overnight. So, given the situation that they've got, how do Somerset paper over the cracks that maybe they'll have left by those players who leave by the 100?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, at the end of the day, you sign good players and then you lose good players immediately. Tom Kohler-Cadmore won't play for Somerset in the Royal London One Day Cup. That's just going to be a fact. Well, One Day Cups, I should say, as it is now. Dixon, on the other hand, I think will. And I think Sean Dixon can be quite a key part of Somerset's One Day Cup run this year. I wouldn't expect him to get picked up in the 100 at all. So I think he could be quite a clever signing in that aspect. I think the youngsters who they've had for the last year, 2 years are obviously a little bit more experienced now. So I think that will help. The likes of Alfie Ogborn, who I've mentioned previously, have now got a little bit more experience. Casey Aldridge, the same. They've got a little bit more experience now. So I don't think it will quite be such a young side as they've had in the past couple of years. But at the same time, you mentioned Sanshad Bashir, the off spinner, who again is a great talent coming through. Played a couple of twos games last year for Somerset back end of the season. So I think he'll feature a fair bit in the One Day Cup this year, with a potential view that Somerset do probably need a spinner. Jack Leach is regularly unavailable through England duties. Roloff van der Merwe, as brilliant as Roloff has been, is getting towards the end of his career. Long best go a couple of years ago, so it is time Somerset needed a spinner. So I do think they have made quite clear strategic move to try and look at the cracks from last season and try and fill them in. Whether it works or not, time will tell.
Time will indeed tell, but time won't tell on your predictions, which you're going to make right now. So, starting off with the county championship, where do you think Somerset will finish in Division 1 this year, and why?
Well, I'm going to go nice and safe, and I'm going to go fourth or fifth. I'm going to go bang in the middle this year. I reckon
Bit
Somerset
pessimistic, don't you think?
like, it might be a little bit, but it's also more realistic than I am usually. So, no, I'll take this. I think Somerset will build on the end of last year. I think they'll be a really difficult team to beat this year. But at the same time, I don't see them blowing teams away. I think they'll do well. There even maybe stretches where Somerset are in title race. But I'd look across the counties, and I do think there are slightly stronger counties out there at the moment across the board.
Lancashire.
Well, I'm not mentioning names, but I think well, look, the county championship is always a lottery. I think teams, you've got to wait for the first couple of weeks where teams, set where they are. So I think honestly, Somerset could be anywhere from top to bottom. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go slab bang in the middle, and play it safe.
Okay, nice to get that one in there. Let's move to the Vitality Blast next then. And obviously, semi-final last year, knocked out by Hampshire. Can they go the full way to the final this year, Alex Duffell?
Yes, and I will bang this door until they finally do it. There is no reason this current group of Somerset players has not won a T20 Blast title. So I believe this is the year they will do it. I think a big spec on whether they do or not will be the overseas signings that they haven't yet announced. There will be one or two more. They haven't announced a batter yet. Whether it's Riley Russo again, I would absolutely love it if it was, but I don't know what his availability is. So I would expect them to make at least one, two more overseas signings. There are some strong other sides out there. Blast is always strong, but I really do believe if this Somerset side can get on form, can get the wins rolling, I think Overton, Gregory, Abel, Lammonby, you've got a really strong group of core players there. I do believe that they can win it all this year.
Nice of you to give them the kiss of death. One Day Cup finally. Where do you think they're going to finish this year? Obviously, eighth last year. Can they improve on that?
Can they improve? Yes, I think they will improve. I wouldn't expect them to make it through the group. I don't think Somerset fans should. It's a very young group of players. It should effectively be viewed as a very much a developmental side, the One Day Cup side, through no fault of Somerset's own. That's just how the competition has played out. So I wouldn't expect them to repeat the feats of a few years ago where we saw James Hildreth hitting the winning runs in the final. But at the same time, I do think progress will be made this year. I think the side should hopefully be stronger than it was last year. And hopefully put up a little bit more of a fight in some games. So I do think Somerset will improve, but I wouldn't expect them to make it out of the group. But the One Day Cup is such a lottery. You don't know who's going to be available with 100 picks. So potentially they could even do even better than what I suggest.
Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see whether those predictions come out as true when you're looking into your crystal ball in March. We'll have a look back in September and see where we get to. Alex, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to you guys at home for watching as well. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. I can't really tell you what to do. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.